You never got me down, Ray. You hear me? Never got me down.
Just his eyes being closed up like that in a real fight, if your eyes are that badly injured, the fight's over. I think they went a little too dramatic on the on the makeup on that scene. Hey GQ, this is Gabriel Rosado, and this is the breakdown. First up, Cinderella Man.
Don't sit down, you're not tired, you're fine, you're fine. Get that thing out of here, he don't need it.
Why is he sitting down?
Not sitting on a stool, it's something that fighters do. And it's kind of like to get in your opponent's head to make them think you're not tired. It's just a mind game. That's what that strategy is. I know some fighters do it. I've actually done it myself.
Why is he sitting down?
Nah, man, I'll probably smack my coach back. I've seen fighters that their coaches will do that. A lot of the times, the fighters that their coaches smack them, the trainer is his father. It all depends. Every fighter is different. You just have to understand your fighter. I guess his trainer saw they need to wake up, snap out of it, and he gives them a good smack.
This guy is a bull rusher. He's gonna keep coming at you all night until you stop him. He can't back up, you stop him.
I actually like that part where he's kind of looking up to the lights and everything gets kind of foggy. I've experienced stuff like that where I'm in the corner, you kind of zone in and you don't hear anything. You have that talk with yourself like, man, this fight's tough, let's suck it up, let's go. And it seemed like in that moment, that's what he's doing, getting himself back into the rhythm.
You gotta beat this son of a bitch from the inside out. You get in there and you hit him and you keep hitting him until you break his nose.
It's very realistic. When the coach is giving you advice, when you get back to the corner, it's very important. So you definitely need a trainer that's confident and believes in you and just gets you back into the fight. It's obviously a tough fight. I like my trainer to tell me exactly what I need to do. I don't need a motivational speech like some guys do. I like detail of what I need to do, what I'm doing wrong to make adjustments. So the corner is pretty much the head coach, it's the assistant coach, the spit bucket guy, and then it's the cut man. If you're cut, then the head coach doesn't enter the ring. He stays outside and the cut man enters the ring because then he has to take care of the cut.
Johnson is making noises about matching him with Max Baer for the title.
The shot to his abdomen is probably the worst shot, especially if you get hit right. You get hit on a sweet spot, what it does is it paralyzes your legs. So mentally you're all there and you're in the game, but it pretty much shuts your legs down.
Get in there and get that sucker! He's showing tremendous determination!
One thing I do hear when I'm in the ring is I do hear the commentator and I can't hear my coach. Pretty much the crowd, you kind of like block them out. Even in the midst of the crowd going wild, for whatever reason, you're still able to hear your trainer. I actually like this part right here when he gets hit with a big shot and then he starts thinking about his kids, because it's one of those moments where you're in trouble and you have to find some type of way of getting your focus back, staying back in the game. So he's using his kids right now as motivation to just keep fighting. The rules are that you have to take the mouthpiece to the corner and they have to wash the mouthpiece or have a second mouthpiece. For a mouthpiece to fly out and you pick it up and put it back in your mouth, it's more for like a dramatic scene, but it's definitely not realistic in a real fight. Round 11 is obviously a very competitive fight. The other guy is definitely in better condition, so in this scene it comes down to just will. It's all about catching a rhythm. You know, sometimes you can go into the 11th round and you're just totally out of it, but he found the inspiration to like keep fighting, having flashbacks of his kids and knowing that he had to win the fight. So at that time they fought 15 rounds. Now it's 12 rounds. They changed it because there was a lot of deaths, so they felt there was just too much head trauma going into 15 rounds in a fight. This comeback moment is big for him because one thing about boxing, it's not like football or baseball or basketball where if you lose a game, you can redeem yourself the next day. You know, with boxing, you never know when the next fight will be. So a loss is a major setback. It's very important for him to come back and win this fight because it keeps him in the game.
And the winner by unanimous decision, James J. Frederick.
When they go to the scorecards and they call it a unanimous decision, that means that all the judges had him winning the fight. If it's a split decision, then that means 2 judges have one guy winning the fight and another judge has the other guy winning the fight. It's pretty much like a shutout. Every judge had him winning the fight. As far as the shots, you know, it's really good shots. This is about going into like the 30s, I believe. Those fights were a lot more brutal. When a fighter was hurt, they didn't immediately stop the fight or the referee won't jump in. So it was very normal for a fight to be that brutal at that time. It's definitely a lot different than how a fight would be now. There's more safety measures where if a guy's taking that much of a pounding, the referee's definitely gonna jump in and stop the fight. Next up, Raging Bull.
Robinson hurting LaMotta.
Robert De Niro, love him. It's a great movie, but the fight scene is so unrealistic because Jake LaMotta wouldn't get hit like that by 10 shots in a row. These are 2 greats, 2 Hall of Famers. Jake LaMotta, great fighter, Italian. At that era, there was a lot of Italian fighters. He was probably one of the best out of the bunch. And Ray Robinson was like the man before Muhammad Ali, right? One of the best, if not the best fighter of all time. He had 200 fights, and in his prime, he was unstoppable. This is an era where guys fought every other week, which is very rare now in boxing. A fighter at that level probably only fights 4 times a year at most. These guys, you know, they had records of 100 and something fights, 200 fights, and that's just unheard of nowadays. Jake LaMotta actually beat Sugar Ray Robinson once, but it was blow for blow. Jake LaMotta wasn't getting hit with 10 shots in a row right now, as you just saw in this scene. So this is just a little dramatic. Ray Robinson was like iconic, you know. Ray Robinson's a good looking dude. The guy they got playing Ray Robinson, he looks like straight from the video Thriller.
Come on, Ray.
Everyone's different. I know that when I'm in a fight, I zone out and it's just me and my opponent. You know, I don't get caught up with the crowd. I don't get caught up with the atmosphere, the lights. So that scene where they're just kind of like locked in, very realistic, it happens. It's kind of the mentality you have to have in a fight. Boxing is a game of seconds and inches. It just takes 1 second to get hit with the wrong shot or inches. If you get caught up with the crowd in that moment, you can get hit with that shot and it's lights out. One thing they got right is Ray Robinson was never able to put Jake down. Jake carried pride in where, you know, you can't hurt me.
Jake LaMotta, right
Come on, Ray.
The part where he's kind of like calling Ray in because he wants Ray to hit him with his best shot. He wants to show Ray like, you can't hurt me. That's realistic. I've done it where a guy hits you with a good shot and you kind of stick your head out at him just to kind of let him know like you can't hurt me. Jake did that to Ray when they fought, but never where he's just letting Ray hit him with 10, 20 shots at a time. And if that happened in an actual fight, the referee would just jump in and stop the fight. It would be considered a TKO. Blood does splatter in the crowd, but never to that extreme. If you're sitting ringside and sweat and all that stuff, even snot, as gross as it is, but it happens. I've been cut badly in one fight where I had 3 cuts over one eye. Man, it was just so much blood and, you know, it gets crazy. But never to that extent. There's certain things you don't take going into a fight, like you don't take aspirin, thins your blood, you don't eat garlic, you don't drink alcohol in training camp. When you get cut, you want that cut to be able to get closed easily, so you want your cut man to be able to put cut medicine and keep the blood flow from going. Some fighters just bleed a lot more than other fighters. It's very rare that you see a guy get hit with 10 shots in a row and the referee not stop it. If a guy is getting hit and he's not answering back, the referee's gonna say, show me something. In that moment, if you don't throw a shot back, you leave the referee with no choice but to just stop the fight.
The fight is stopped on row after row.
The way a fight is scored is who's landing the more shots, who's landing the bigger shots. Because see, I can land a jab and you can land a big right hand, so that's one apiece. But if my shot had more steam to it, was a bigger blow, then I get that point. Another way you can score a round is by ring generalship. Who's controlling the rhythm of the round? Like who has the better foot movement? Who's rolling and slipping the punches? So when punches are coming, who's slipping a lot better? They consider that ring generalship. So you can actually win rounds without throwing shots. The other opponent can throw more blows, but if you're able to make him miss by rolling and slipping, you're actually winning the round on ring generalship. There's actually a fighter, Willie Pep, who actually won a round without throwing 1 punch. This is back in the 30s. He made his opponent miss about 70 punches. And he won the round just on ring generalship, just with head movement, slipping, and using his feet. It looked so good that the judges gave him the round.
Into a definite defeat. And when I say that, I mean Jake.
Him walking to Sugar's corner doesn't happen. It's not allowed. The referee can disqualify you, or he can take away a point. You have to go back to your corner.
You never got me down, Ray. You hear me? Never got me down.
Just his eyes being closed up like that in a real fight, if your eyes are that badly injured, the fight's over. I think they went a little too dramatic on the on the makeup on that scene, but it is what it is. Next up, Rocky. Yeah, so this already gets me like going with the music and him running through the neighborhood. You know, I'm from Philadelphia, so this movie is like legendary to me, and it's just pretty much what a fighter goes through. You know, he's waking up in the morning, he's getting his run. What the scene is showing is he's preparing for the fight with Creed. Usually training camp is a period of 6 weeks to 8 weeks where you're preparing for a fight. That's pretty much what he was doing right there as training camp. Running is beneficial. We call it road work. Some fighters run 3 miles, some fighters run 10 miles. It's important because it gives you stamina and endurance in your legs. Let's say a 12-round fight is about 45 minutes. You definitely want to go run for at least that amount of time. That way your legs are accustomed to being in the ring and bouncing around and moving. And another thing is, when you get hit with a shot, what it does is it impacts your legs. A good body shot can kind of paralyze your legs. So when you run, you build that endurance where your legs have a lot more strength to be able to take those type of blows. If there's anything that a fighter would have to do in a camp, the most important thing would be sparring and running. Everything about boxing is a rhythm. So when you're doing that speed bag, you can go fast or you can go slow. That speed bag moving that quick and you being able to adapt to it, it increases your speed and your endurance. And then it's working the eye coordination. When you start off camp, you're probably gonna start the push-ups with 2 hands. Then maybe into the 3rd week is when you can pick up the strength and then start doing 1 hand at a time. It's called strength and conditioning. A lot of trainers prefer their fighters to do more boxing and more road work rather than conditioning, the strength conditioning, because sometimes when you build muscle, it takes away that quick snap from the punches. So you want to do conditioning as a fighter, but not too much because it could slow you down. Here he's fighting Apollo, which is a heavyweight. So these guys are a lot bigger, so you definitely want to put on muscle and you definitely want to be stronger. So it's more realistic for the heavyweights to do this kind of workout where they don't have to worry about making weight because they're 200 pounds plus. A heavyweight can vary from 200 pounds to 250 pounds. The weight advantage doesn't matter. When we were watching the scene with Jake LaMotta and Sugar Ray Robinson, that fight is a middleweight fight. So you don't want to put on too much muscle because then you can't make the weight. So I fight at 160. I started my career at 154, and now I fight at 168, which is super middleweight. The medicine ball, the assistant coach is hitting him on the abs. It's so that you can absorb impact in a ring. An average guy with a great 6-pack, he won't be able to take a blow from a boxer because it's a difference from you having a 6-pack and turning your body into a shield. It's not just for looks. It's actually to be able to take that impact. It's a great workout. I do this for my camps. Beating up the cow, I don't know about that part. Definitely not doing that for camp, but it's interesting. It is normal that you're running by yourself because not too many people want to wake up at 5 in the morning and run 5 or 10 miles with you. But some fighters do have sparring partners. They do camp together where then you wake up in the morning with your sparring partners and you guys can kind of put the road work in together. But for the most part, it's always by yourself. I probably do my road work 75% of the time alone. I think with Rocky, it was all mental. He wasn't the quickest guy, the sharpest guy, wasn't the brightest guy, but he had that will to win. Just goes to show how far you can go if mentally you put your mind to something. I think that's what Rocky did. You know, those steps are just literally 15 minutes away from where I lived in Philadelphia. Everyone runs up the Rocky stairs, and it's something that I would do in training camps. It's actually a really great workout. Definitely tried it a couple times. I grew up idolizing Rocky. You're from Philadelphia, you know it's about cheesesteaks and Rocky. One thing I respect about the film is that you can tell that Stallone is an actual boxing fan. I remember doing Creed with him. He actually wanted to pursue a professional boxing career. And he told me about experiences of boxing with actual pro fighters, Joe Frazier, Roberto Duran, and it was really fun to hear these stories. The movie was definitely very realistic to what a fighter really goes through. Next up, $1 Million Baby. If that really happened, the fight's over. She started the fight already, putting her forearm pretty much to her neck.
You do that one more time, it'll cost you a point. Do you hear me?
Referee warns her, and now she hits her with a blow, which was obviously blatant. It would stop the fight. It would be a disqualification at this point. You've seen things like this happen in fights where Mike Tyson tried to break a guy's arm. One time when he bit a guy's ear. You know, when you're doing something like that that has nothing to do with boxing, the fight's over. It's just not in the rules. Once you're warned, if you do it again, it's a disqualification.
All right, that's it. I'm gonna take away a point. 1 point deduction at the blue corner.
If you literally walk up to your opponent and you hit him with an elbow, there's no warning. You just did a foul, it's over.
Deduction at the blue corner.
What just happened right there, that just would never happen. I've seen things like that happen in actual fights where the corners jump in. The entourage of the fighters jump in and it's just mayhem. Now it's a street fight. Women's boxing, I don't know why they do this, but women don't do 3-minute rounds. They do 2-minute rounds, which hopefully they should change. And the rules apply the same to the men and women. How many warnings are you gonna give her? She choked her, hit her with an elbow more than once, then she hit her. It's guaranteed you get disqualified. There's a fighter who, in his prime, was probably one of the best, Roy Jones Jr. And he was undefeated. There's a fight where he's beating his opponent, and his opponent, as he goes down, his knee touches the canvas and he hits him with a blow right as his knee touches the canvas. They disqualified him. And this was Roy Jones Jr., a guy who was a mega star. He didn't get a break. So, you know, a fight like this just would never fly in a real situation. What he's doing is he's applying medicine to the cut. You want to squeeze the cut and you want to apply the medicine and kind of stop the blood flow. In different states, they allow certain medicines. So maybe a cut medicine that you can use in Las Vegas, you won't be able to use it in New York. So each state varies.
What do I do about the bear?
You know, they step into the outside and hook him the lever.
That's good coaching. She's asking him what should she do, and he's giving her good advice, and he's staying poised. It's a good interaction with the fighter and the coach at that moment.
I want you to hit it right up under her skinny ass, understand? Right in the sciatic nerve. Just keep digging it in there, digging it in, and just keep sticking her.
He's obviously an old school trainer. Old school trainers get very specific, you know, hit him in the liver or hit him in the equilibrium, which would be a shot back here. One of the rules in boxing when you're training for a fight is not to allow anyone to record your sparring sessions. Let's say you do have an injury and obviously it's recorded, that can leak. I went into a fight where I suffered a tear calf muscle. I didn't want anyone to know or anyone to be in the gym just because I didn't want to go into the fight and my opponent have that information. She obviously has a bad cut and her face is swollen up bad, but she's still in the fight. She's actually outpointing her opponent, but her opponent is just fighting very dirty. So she got dirty back, which is smart, but she should have made those punches count because she hit her in the softest part of the body, which is the butt. I understand why she hit her in the butt. She should have made it count and like hit her somewhere else, but at least she's trying to gain her respect. I would have threw shots in the back of the head, which are called rabbit punches. Every fighter is gonna do dirty tactics, but it's all about doing it in a way where it doesn't look dirty, right? It always happens with fighters that really genuinely don't like each other and they really want to hurt each other. There's certain things where you can do where if you're in a clinch, and let's say the referee is standing on this side to my left, and I have a free right hand, I can throw blows to my opponent's back and the referee doesn't see that. It's dirty, but the ref isn't seeing it. You have to be slick about it. What they were doing was just obvious, blatantly hitting each other in the back of the head, the choking and things like that. It just would never fly in an actual fight. From the ears to right here is all, you know, it's all open. And the side of your ribs, anything behind is dirty. Anything behind the head is a dirty blow. Anything below the waist is dirty as well. When someone gets knocked down, you have, it's called an 8 count. You have to be up before 10. If the referee is counting you down and you're on the ground and he says 10 and you're still not up, the fight's over, it's a knockout. A referee can be counting and you can get up, but if you're wobbly and your eyes are foggy and you're kind of stumbling, the referee usually say, come walk to me. And if you're not capable of walking that straight line, then the referee can call the fight off. Once I saw this, it's just like, oh man, whatever. Like, this is just not accurate on what a real fight is about. Obviously, being a fighter, I want to see something that's, you know, realistic. Well, what happened, honestly, in the sport of boxing, your entourage is jumping in the ring and the just got streaked. Like there's no ruse, it's over. You definitely want to use the ropes to your advantage. The ropes can work against you if you're just laying on them, but if you need that extra bounce, throw yourself off the rope and kind of dip under a punch. You definitely want to know how to use the ropes. You only get a minute break, right? So the moment that the bell rings, the assistant coach, his job is to immediately put the stool in the ring because you want your fighter to get as much time as they need to recover to go into the next round. So he's doing what he's supposed to do. For whatever reason, the stool wasn't sitting up, and then, you know, she gets hit. Obviously, you see the trainer trying to take the stool back in, but it's too late. But that's very realistic. As soon as the round's over, the first thing you want to do is get the stool in. Yeah, I've never seen that before. The scene makes me so upset. It's like, man, this is crazy. It's a good movie, but it's just not a realistic fight scene. Next up, Creed. I moved to Los Angeles due to an agent had called me, told me I had a good look for film. I'm in the gym and I get on the treadmill, and the guy that was the choreograph guy for the movie Creed, he's seen some of my fights on HBO, and he's like, hey man, you're the perfect guy for this role. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what movie he's talking about. And I'm like, okay. And then we exchange numbers. He calls me a week later and he's like, hey, can you come to Warner Brothers Studio? And then I find out that it's the movie Creed with Rocky. And I'm like, wow. It was just wow that my first movie was definitely like, you know, playing a boxer in my hometown. So it was super cool.
So tomorrow, let's go.
This is actually the first time that a fight scene in a movie has been one shot. We probably shot that day for about 10 hours. I think we started shooting at 9 in the morning to like 9 at night. It was crazy. Each take was one shot. So me and Michael, we worked on the scene on the choreographed part for about 2 months because we had to get it down to a T. You know, you couldn't make any mistakes. We knew exactly what punches coming. I would let him know, like, really land that blow. And when I throw the shot, I'm gonna really land it on you. And there was times where we actually caught each other on the face, but since we know the shot's coming, we can write it off. And then there were times where if the camera is on Michael's right side, I had to then throw my shot to the right side. You have to make those adjustments in the middle. You don't really know where the camera guy's gonna end up. You had to be laser sharp focused for it to come out the way it did. I remember when we were doing this scene, I was getting so tired. It's like take after take after take, and you know, sometimes the crowd is screaming, sometimes the crowd is fake screaming, you know, they're doing this. Stallone comes up to me and he's like, just remember, you never know what scene they're gonna use, so do every scene like it's your last. That kind of gave me that push to, all right, let me make sure I stay sharp. It was a tiring scene, but you know, it was worth it. It came out so dope. The referee actually refereed some of my real fights. He's actually a ref from Philadelphia. You want to have a game plan 100%, but you want to be able to make adjustments. In camp, you prepare for different styles. So maybe one of your sparring partners has quick hands, and then the other sparring partner maybe is 20 pounds heavier than you. You kind of switch up the pattern of your sparring partners. You don't want everyone to have the same style. In the case that in the fight, maybe your opponent decides to box, or maybe he wants to apply pressure. whatever the case may be, you definitely want to set up a game plan to adjust in the middle of the fight. That's a clinch. A clinch is only dirty when you're doing excessive clinching and you're not allowing the fight to like flow. The clinch is to take that moment to regroup yourself. You get hit with a shot to the body that kind of took some steam off of you. You kind of want to hold on to your opponent just to kind of catch that breather, and then when the referee comes in and splits you guys up, you're able to just kind of regroup yourself. The same thing with a headshot. You can get hit with a punch to the head where you're probably buzzed for a few seconds, where you need that clinch to kind of just shake it off, because it could just be the next punch can put you down. And another reason you want to use the clinch is to break your opponent's rhythm. So if your opponent is getting confident and he's flowing with his punches, you want to disrupt his rhythm. Gloves we were using with Grant gloves, it's probably about 6 different brands that you're able to use. So it really depends on what a fighter is comfortable with. So I remember I'm looking at the outfit in this scene and I'm like, that's corny. Hey, you know, I know a guy. And so the guy that makes my custom outfits for my fight, he actually made the fit in the scene. The bloody eye, that was great CGI. Like, they added that right there in that scene, because we definitely didn't cut to do any makeup or anything like that. I remember when we were practicing, Michael had this mouthpiece in his mouth, and it was like a clear mouthpiece. There's different mouthpieces, right, for sports, but a boxer mouthpiece is custom. The one he was using, I think it was like from Foot Locker or something. Nothing against Foot Locker, but we don't fight with Foot Locker mouthpieces. And I'm like, dude, you're not gonna really fight with that mouthpiece. And he's like, yeah, and I'm like, bro, that's not what we fight with. That's not a real boxer mouthpiece. I'm gonna put you on to my guy. So the mouthpiece that he used, and it says Creed on it, was a spot in Philadelphia that actually does custom mouthpieces for fighters.
I want you to throw your left under the radar. Then when you come up with this shovel hook, you're gonna see an opening, put it right on his chin, then I'll drop him.
Mouthpiece in, seconds out.
Your old man did that to me. It worked.
So right there, Stallone saw a weakness. He's letting them know, hit him with the shovel shot and come over with overhand right. And I guess by him saying your old man did it to me kind of gives him that confidence, like, oh, this shot's gonna work. I got up, but obviously I was like wobbled, so the referee has to stop the fight. There's some referees that allow the fight to continue, and there's some referees, they give you a 10 count and you're wobbling around, they're gonna stop the fight. So it just really all depends on the referee. With the movie Creed, all the fighters were real fighters. So it was me, it was Tony Bellew, Andre Ward, world-class fighters, so I think that's what made the fight seem so realistic. I was able to literally like touch Michael in the face with a shot, but I know that I'm not gonna put enough on it where I can actually hurt him. Next up, Southpaw.
Where you fight, anger is your biggest tool. Fighting angry, that drains you twice as fast.
It's so important to train a fighter's mind. Whatever you can get a fighter to believe, mentally he can pull it off in a fight. So it's a very important weapon. You know, you can't fight with emotion, pretty much is what he's letting them know. You have to just be sharp.
Yeah, the guy in the ring is your enemy, but if all you're trying to do is kill him, you leave yourself vulnerable. Gotta protect yourself.
That's the type of trainer I can relate to more, as a trainer that likes to train your mind. So physically, you can do everything. You can be fast, you can be powerful, but really it just comes to your mindset. So what he's doing right here is he's kind of building his confidence and changing his approach.
Right, my back's against the wall. It's part of the wall. Blocking on shit. Shielding yourself to block anything that comes that way.
He was already a fighter that was like on top of the game, but he lacked the fundamentals, so he's showing them the proper technique and an angle on how to properly defend himself, because he was a fighter that took a lot of blows. So he's showing them the art of defense with the fundamentals and the basics, because it's hard to get hit when you're fighting an angle. I actually have a rope in my ring and I do this technique. So it's very good.
Keep making a miss.
Everyone thinks that fighting is just about throwing punches. It's not, it's an art. So it's knowing when a shot is coming, knowing how to properly slip. It's like a ring generalship. You actually get points making your opponent miss. Earlier in the film, the trainer says boxing is like chess, and it's true.
boxing is not about this. Boxing's about this. Boxing is like a chess game.
That's a term that old school trainers use. It's all about what can I do to get ahead. So if I'm jabbing to the body and I notice that my opponent drops his right hand to block that body shot, my next move is going to be I'm going to feint him to the body, and the moment he drops his right hand, then I'm going to hook him. It's a chess move. It's who's the smarter man, who makes the best move at the right time.
Just block.
Move your feet, move your feet.
He was supposed to avoid the punches. So you're supposed to work on the skill of not being hit. There's fighters that fight on a world-class level that made it through skill. But what this is showing right here is, in order to stay in the game, you have to reinvent yourself. He's not that fast anymore. He's not that explosive anymore. So he has to add things to his game to make it into the next chapter of his career. You know, I've been a pro boxer for 14 years now, so I'm not as fast or quick as I was when I was 20, 21. So I actually find myself in the gym working on techniques like rolling, slipping, working on defense. If he wants to stay in the game, he definitely has to make those adjustments. A fighter is lucky to have a 10-year career. Anything past 10, you're blessed, especially if you're fighting on a world-class level. It's rare for fighters to fight past 10 years because the pounding you take, the abuse on your body. But I think the fighters that make it past those 10 years and are still fighting at an elite level are fighters that are able to make the adjustment and add different elements to their game. There's little things that you want to do where you can keep up with a fighter that's much quicker than you. You want to work on your jab, you want to work on your footwork. What you have as an advantage is you have experience.
Like fighting a gnat. Yeah, like a boss motherfucker.
I heard that.
The beauty of boxing is so diverse. Boxing is the only time where you'll literally see a mix of cultures. You'll see street guys, you'll see cops, and it brings everybody together because everyone loves the sport and the discipline of the sport. I've been in the gym where there's a cop and one of my homies probably just got out of jail, and they can have a conversation because boxing brings everybody together. It probably was a real boxing gym. One thing about boxing, it's a poor man's sport. The gyms are very rugged, very raw, and it's that type of atmosphere that you need to have that hunger, because I don't know anyone that grew up well off and privileged that is willing to go through that or put their body through that. You know, I think it's a certain hunger and a certain mentality that you have to be that fighter and get in the ring with another guy that wants to take your head off. It's about who's gonna eat. Like, you're not gonna take food from my table, from my plate. It's killed or be killed. Just being in the gym where it has that rugged, raw feel kind of keeps that killer mentality that you need to have in this sport. Next up, the fighter.
Jay's 22-0. He's never been knocked down.
Oh, well, that's going to change tomorrow.
In fact, we expected a much better fighter.
I'm just grateful to be here and have the opportunity. Thank you guys for the shot.
Mickey Ward has a really chill personality, and Mark Wahlberg is a big boxing fan, so he's playing Mickey Ward down to a T, like really chilled. And the brother is just hilarious. His character, you see it a lot in boxing. Guys that are just, you know, all out there, like almost crazy. His brother was actually a professional fighter. He became Mickey's trainer, but his brother suffered a drug addiction. His family, they're wild, you know, his sisters, you know, they all want to fight. It's like that. They're all depending on Mickey to make it. They're counting on him. It's very realistic. It's always cool when you have a guy like Mark Wahlberg and Stallone that are really fans and understand the sport and do these movies, because then they bring that real feel, which is great.
I plan on moving right through Mickey Ward tomorrow. Moving on to other great fighters like Gotti. Yeah, I believe Gotti and I would make a great match. Are you scared, Mr.
Press conferences are rowdy because the press conference sells the fight. You kind of face off, push each other, you know, you have an exchange of words, and it gets the people going. But you can't fight in a press conference, because if you throw blows in a press conference, then you get fined by the commission. You want to put your hands on the opponent because he might say something you don't like. The tension just works up even more because, you know, you got to wait for the day of the fight to put hands on your opponent. At the press conference, usually it's only your manager and your head coach. But that all varies because there's fights that are big pay-per-view fights, so they have the whole team on stage.
Mary,
10 stone, 6 pounds.
A weigh-in for a fighter sucks because, you know, you're cutting weight. At this time, Mickey Ward was probably fighting at 140, which is lightweight, and he probably walked around at 160, so you're doing a 20-pound weight cut. You're drained, you're dried out, you're tired, you're exhausted, and you're hungry. So it's definitely not a fun moment right there for the fighter. At the same time, while you're making the cut, you have to do press and you have to do interviews and you have to kind of like put on a show to sell the fight, but no one knows like you're just struggling physically to make this weight cut. Very grueling on the body. If you can't cut down 1 pound, you can pay a large fine. There's been fights where guys didn't make the weight cut where they literally have to pay $1 million of their purse to the opponent. It depends on the magnitude of the fight, and my opponent doesn't agree to the fine and he doesn't want to fight me, he can still get paid and then there's no fight and the show is over because I didn't follow my contract making the weight. You definitely have to make the weight. I've had 40 fights, so I've had all kind of emotions walking into the fight. And I think it just all varies on where your mindset is at. Life happens even when you're fighting a big fight. It really shows the day of the fight.
12 rounds of boxing for the WBU.
That right there, when they're warming up, it's kind of like nerves. You have the world watching, you have the crowd, but then you're very anxious and excited at the same time. You don't know what to expect. You're not warmed up into the fight yet, so you kind of got to shadow box with your trainer and do what they're doing right there, which is like mitt work, just to kind of get into the rhythm and get the juices flowing. I can actually relate to this scene right now because I fought overseas in Liverpool. The guy that Mickey fought is from Liverpool. So I remember the crowd just going crazy and some cheered me and most booed and things like that. So it's a different feeling when you fight someone in their country and you're not in the States.
And there is Mickey Ward of Lowell, Massachusetts entering the ring. It's his first fight outside the United States.
A moment like this, it can make a fighter kind of crumble a bit where he can get intimidated by the moment. For me, it does the opposite. For me, I fuel off of it, booing and everything like that. You want to disappoint them, right? You want to pull the upset.
Shane Neary has had 22 professional fights and won them all.
And the commentators were actually commentators that have called my fight as well, so it's the real deal. It's all great, you know, with the HBO and things like that. Very real.
It's away. Goes to the body with the left hook. Lands the uppercut again. Neary down for the second time. Mickey Van's gonna stop it right.
You would love a knockout because a knockout is the home run out of the park, right? But if you can just come out of the fight with a win, that's just good enough because it's difficult. It's not a team sport as far as, you know, if you get fatigued, you can call timeout. If you get cut, you can call timeout and bring in a substitute. Anything can happen in a round. So if you can come out the fight with a win, whether it's a knockout or a decision, that's just great. The fighter, it's probably one of the best trilogies in the sport of boxing. Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti. Then you have Mark Wahlberg, a boxing fan who's playing Mickey. It's just a perfect combination. It's just great that a film was made of him. Thanks so much for watching these clips. I had a great time breaking down these fights that I grew up watching. See you later.